Hey beautiful people, my name's Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today I am going to start the Try a Chapter. I actually did a nonfiction one, which I can leave below, but I still have 14 fiction books, and I decided I will also link the video below where I give a brief overcap of them. Then I'm going to try a chapter or two, depending if they're really short, in each one, and then I will come back and hold it up and tell you my thoughts on that book. So you can scroll along, look for whichever book seems of interest to you or you would like to hear more about, or if you're just doing errands or cleaning your house or traveling in the car or whatever, you can just listen along. And if you hear something that sounds like, that sounds interesting, I will also leave in the description the list of the book so you can figure out what was that book she was talking about and check into it, because most of these books I have never heard of before, and it's going to be an interesting process to see if I want to read them or do I want to unhaul them. And go ahead and guess now, how many out of 14 do you think that I'm going to end up keeping? The first book, The Golden Hour by Beatriz Williams. This, I think it's a historical fiction. It is telling the story of a woman who has spent significant time in the Bahamas interviewing the the Duke and the Duchess of Windsor, who was assigned by England to rule over the Bahamas in the 40s. The war is going on. She's found out some scandalous information about Great Britain, and the first chapter is her going to Great Britain to basically, I don't think she's blackmailing. I don't know exactly what her aim is with this information that she's possessed, but she has gone and she's kind of getting herself in trouble. Her husband is in on this and he has been captured. So there's a lot going on right from the start. Very intriguing. I love that it sets up and teaches me something about history that I didn't know. So this will be a keeper. So the next book is Picture Me Gone, Meg Rosoff. And this is actually a young adult book, and it is basically a young girl who is traveling with her father because she's too young to be left alone, and he has business to go see the wife of a friend who has kind of disappeared. And so supposedly she is very good at figuring things out and piecing things together and has an ability to look at objects and kind of get a sense of information from them. It starts I actually ended up having to read 3 chapters just to get to page 10. So it is written for younger people, very, very short chapters, easy to read in that sense. But I don't think I'm going to read it. It didn't necessarily strike me as something that I wanted to spend my time in, but I think it was interesting enough for a younger person who maybe hasn't read a bunch of thriller or mystery or kind of as a breaking in point. I think it was cute. It starts out talking about our main character Milla, who was named for her great grandfather's dog. And so there's a whole, just kind of flipping through, there's a whole lot of dog references. When I read the back cover about the author, it talked about a couple other books where she also talks about dogs. So dogs is a theme that she also kind of resonates. And I'm a cat person, but that's okay. I don't mind reading about dogs. But anyway, I think I'm going to pass on this one. But if any of that sounded like something to check out, or if you have a younger reader in your life, this could be a good recommendation. The next book I attempted, The Day She Disappeared by Christobel Kent. I like that name, Christobel, instead of Christopher. That's very clever. I like that. It starts out as a prologue in the murderer's head who murders a young woman pretty violently, and then the first couple chapters tells the story of a man who's kind of down and out, doesn't have purpose or direction. He's crashing at a bartender's female's place. They kind of have some dialogue and banter that's slightly interesting, but to be perfectly honest, I wasn't exceptionally drawn in or wanting to follow along with the story, I think I'm going to let this one go. I don't know that there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It just didn't kind of pull me in, and that's what we're going for, right? So that's that one. So this Don't Believe It by Charlie Donlea. This is a story that also starts out with a murder from the murderer's point of view. A girl is the murderess in this case, taking out her boyfriend slash soon to be fiance, and it is basically a book about her trial and how public it is, and it's like one of those documentary big high profile TV shows, which I have gotten drawn into some of those in the past. So the way it was done about blood talking and all these things was interesting without being overly grotesque. I really appreciated the kind of setup of reporters asking questions and just the description of the atmosphere and the thoughts that were going on. So this, I think I'm definitely going to keep and read sometime. The next book by Beth Harbison, Every Time You Go Away. This is a romance type of book. Basically, the prologue is her learning of her husband's passing in their beach house, and he was discovered that he had actually passed in his sleep and been there for a couple days before he was discovered, which sounds horrific and something that would haunt you. So she is going back to the house to kind of make peace with this, to reconcile what she wants to do with it, to try to continue to live for their son. And she says she never believed in ghosts, and now she does. That's kind of the setup. So he basically, his spirit comes back. There's a lot of references in the opening chapter to pop culture, to Dory, and just keep swimming to different songs and lyrics. And I particularly always enjoy those kind of comparisons or analogies or whatnot. So I think this will be really sweet. I think it'll be a great romance. I'll probably set it aside for February or when I'm in the mood for a romance, but I think I'm going to hold on to this one. I appreciated it. I liked it. Next up, The Night Stages by Jane Urquihart. So this one, I don't think I did a good job describing it from the description, and now I know a little more now that I've read the first chapter and prologue. Basically, a American is in Ireland. She has had a relationship with a man who lost his younger brother mysteriously. We don't know if he is alive or not, or what the full circumstances of the disappearance are at the beginning. There is a mural that is like in the airport across the entire wall, and she basically is there waiting for weather to clear to catch her flight to end the relationship and fly back home. But because of the delay and looking at this mural, she is inspired to kind of give her relationship another chance and try to work through things. And the prologue of it starts from the artist's point of view as he's kind of looking out over the scene. So there's something kind of subconscious even about the mural that entices her and does this. But honestly, I don't think I'm going to read this book. It's okay. I don't have anything really specifically. I just didn't feel like I cared that much. But I like the idea that a mural might do that. But just the way it was so vague, and I'm not quite sure where the story's going. It's a little thick. I'm just going to let this one go. I've got other things I'm more excited about to read. So let's try another one. Madness is Better Than Defeat by Ned Bowman. So this is a novel about a CIA agent. It's kind of set in the present tense, but then it's flashing back to the 1930s when he went to Honduras to be as an undercover agent trying to get some information. There is a film that's supposedly being filmed in the same jungle that's supposed to be a comedy that's being filmed. They supposedly get mixed up with each other. He's trying to get the evidence of the case to document all this stuff in retrospect. So it's this. It sounds like it could be really, really interesting, but it felt a little over my head, I think. I'm not sure. I think part of it's supposed to be funny, and I just have a really weird sense of humor. I'm just going to put it out there. Just things that normal people would probably think are funny, I don't always think are funny. So I think it's supposed to be a little tongue-in-cheekish, and I like dry humor tongue-in-cheekish, but yeah, I think I'm going to let this one go too. The next book to talk about, The Captives, Debra Jo Immergut. So this is kind of borderline. I had to really stop and like put the book down after I read a chapter and think about it. I really love the way it is set up. It is told through the viewpoint of a prison psychologist who does whatever they do to the prisoners and can prescribe therapy or counseling or medications or whatever to help along the prisoners. So one day a young woman walks in, and it is his like high school crush, the person that never he had a relationship with. She doesn't even recognize him or remember him at all, but he was just enthralled with her, and she supposedly, we don't know what she's done. It's somehow a brutal, violent crime that she is basically spending the rest of her life in prison. So in her mind, she wants to try to get drugs prescribed to her so she can overdose or figure out some way to take her life. She's ready to be done, to check out. He's kind of struggling with direction of life and purpose of life, and knows that he's not really supposed to be treating her or be her doctor because he has a connection to her personally, but he's intrigued by what she's done and why, and wants to help her, and they get involved. So I'm kind of intrigued by that. I appreciated the writing. I liked the dialogue and the thoughts of what was going on in his mind and how he was wrestling with the decision. I may hold on to this for a little bit before I unhaul it, but I'm leaning towards unhauling it just because I think there's even more enthralling books and stories out there that I want to read, but this one's maybe. My Brother's Shadow by Monika Schroeder. This is set in World War I in Berlin. A young boy who is trying to become a writer gets picked up in the Berlin newspaper and gets, his whole family is German. His brother's fighting for the Germans. His whole family is trying to support those war efforts, but through his journalism, he comes to basically support the other viewpoint. And so he's wrestling with that throughout this. It seems like a short, cute little book, but maybe not as well told or as in depth as some other books that I have read lately. I feel like I have kind of had different variations of the story, and I think I'm going to pass this along to someone else. This one I had a lot of high hopes for. Emperor of Time, Daniel Godfrey. This is actually about Pompeii, and there is a magical element of a time distortion element that can be used. The city is kind of using it as a weapon. It's not secret. People know about it, are fearful of it. There are slaves and gladiators and all kinds of things going on. It seems like, if those kind of things are your interest or whatever, that it would be worthwhile. Honestly, even the first chapter had so much packed into it and so much going on. I'm not even sure I understand everything that was going on in the first chapter. I think it was trying to build up a whole lot of stuff that will be visited throughout the book. So it has some potential, but I think I'm going to pass this one forward. I just read the first chapter of Mercy House, Alena Dillon, and this is definitely a keeper for me. I have not gotten to the part where the back kind of blurb talks about it being a kind of nunnery that supports women who are trying to get away from domestic abuse and shelter them and pray with them and help them through what they're going through. And then they somehow have to kind of push the boundaries of their vows in the Catholic Church to do something that they feel like they're being asked and called by the Lord to do. The first chapter is told from the perspective of one of the nuns on call who is manning the front door. A woman comes in the middle of the night who has been abused and needs protection, and it is actually just brilliantly told. I love that, even little quirky things like she gets mugs that were gifted to them from previous women that say best sister ever, or those kind of things. Just the little subtle humors, her kind of little almost snarkiness with like, forgive me, Lord, but you could just kiss my ass kind of thing. I just really think that this is going to be a fun, good read. And we're going to keep this one. Next is Papillon, Henri Charriere. This is a Frenchman. His memoir about being falsely accused, set up to be the scapegoat in a murder, sentenced to hard life in prison, and escaping, ends up Venezuela. I just think, I haven't seen this movie. I don't know all the details, but I want to know. I'm intrigued, and I look forward to reading this. This is going to be a keeper. Dark August by Katie Tallo. So this is a story of a young girl whose mother kind of gives up on her. She's kind of raised by her grandmother, who also doesn't really know what to do with her, sends her off to boarding school. She has some struggles, is kind of flashing forward to when she is kind of in a dead-end relationship, and then she comes to find out that her grandmother has passed, left the house to her, and that's kind of the first chapter that I read. When I went back and read like the back cover, supposedly she's going to find some evidence within the house that stirs up some mysteries of the past. She's going to kind of detective into it. Small town, a house burns down, people die. She's trying to uncover all this stuff. I mean, it seems like a lot going on, and I'm not particularly attached to her or drawn into it by the first chapter. So I think, in light of all the things that I have that I really want to read, I'm going to let this one go, but there's some interesting things going on there. Finally, The Clouds Roll Away, Sibello Giorello. She wrote a novel about I don't know how exactly old the woman is. She's talking about a boyfriend, so obviously not married, and yet she has adopted 2 children from Liberia and is in Virginia, and there is the light just flashed. There's a burning cross in her yard one night, and so the FBI is called in for hate crimes. It sounds like nothing much is going to progress, or that this isn't going to be taken a priority, so she delves into it herself, which sounds really dangerous if you're a single mom with 2 kids. I think it's probably got a good statement and a lot of heart in it. This was a blind date book that was sent to me. I just kind of put in my descriptions of things that I liked, and this is what was sent to me. But I don't think I'm going to read it, y'all. You can leave me a comment if you know this book or think that this is important, or, that I should read it. And the light just flickered off. That's awesome. Maybe that's a sign of some sort. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to let that one go. And so there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including the nonfictions. I'm keeping 7. This one was borderline, so I think out of the 18 that I've read, this would be number 8 that I would keep. I think I'm going to hold on to it for just a little bit, see if I feel in the mood to read it or put it in my TBR. If it hangs around for another year, I will let it go. So here are the ones that I am letting go. So I feel pretty good about it. Put this in my unhaul, get these out of the way to make room for books that I'm super excited about. If there's any here, though, that you have read, you think, Kristen, you better give that one another shot, give it another couple chapters, I am perfectly happy to revisit it. Otherwise, I will put it in my stack to take to Little Free Libraries or to a used bookstore and get some credit for. And I appreciate, as always, you stopping by. If there's any of the ones that I've kept, maybe I should hold those up and you want to tell me to put those on my TBR sooner rather than later, because the truth is they will probably not be on my TBR anytime soon, maybe not even this calendar year. So any of these that you think I should, well, actually the two nonfictions will definitely be on my TBR for November, for nonfiction November. So these two will be read for nonfiction November. I always have a goal to read at least 4 books during nonfiction November, so there's 2 right there. And the rest will stay on my TBR pile, waiting for the right time to put them in. But let me know your thoughts. As always, thank you for stopping by. Like and subscribe for more reviews and videos. Y'all have a super blessed day. Take care.